Right now, somewhere on the Atlantic, there's a man with a watch on his wrist worth $12,000. And in a small town far away, another man opens a photo of that watch on his phone and looks at it a little longer than he needs to. He'll never buy it, and he knows that. The first man paid the money for it. The second one will never pay it. But they both want the same thing, and they want it just as badly. And here's what to grasp from the start. The man staring at the photo on his phone, the one who simply can't afford it, he isn't the audience for this ad. His wanting itself is the product, and someone has already sold it. There's a company that figured this out before anyone else in the world did. It has been making watches for a century, but its real product isn't watches at all. Its real product is the way millions of people look at those watches, people who will never own one themselves. Today, we'll take that machine apart, piece by careful piece, because it doesn't only run on watches, it runs on you too. Before you go out today and want something you simply can't afford, sit with 3 simple questions. First, why do you want the thing that you can't buy more than the thing you actually can? By every rule of logic in the world, it should be the other way around. Second, if a luxury object physically goes to 1% of people on Earth, been taught to want it to, who exactly does that serve? And third, the most uncomfortable one. Say you finally break through it all. You earn it, you save, you reach, and you buy the thing you wanted. Will it finally be enough for you? Or do you already know the answer? The answers add up to one story: how wanting was turned into production, and how you, even with empty pockets, were turned into its raw material. And it starts with a simple question: what's actually inside the box when you buy an expensive thing? Let's take one concrete example: Rolex. Not because it's the worst out there, but because it's actually the cleanest. On Rolex, the machine is fully visible, with nothing in the way to hide it. You tell yourself you want a watch, but let's be honest with each other. Humanity solved the watch as a device a very long time ago. Time, accurate to a degree you'll never need, is already sitting in your pocket right there in your phone. If you actually needed the function, you'd already have it and forgotten it. Nobody pays that kind of serious money just for the function alone. So what's really in the box then? Proof. A small object that announces without using a single word, instantly to anyone you happen to pass, that you have truly made it in life, that you reached somewhere special, somewhere not everyone gets to reach. And here's the part people miss. When you put a thing like that on, you're not doing it for yourself. You already know what's on your wrist. You're doing it for someone else's eyes. The object only really comes alive the moment another person sees it. Its value lives outside of you, in the head of the person watching. Hold on to that. We're coming back to it. An expensive thing like this doesn't work on the owner's wrist at all. It works in the eyes of whoever sees it. But that raises a question, one that turns everything around. If the value of the thing lives in somebody else's head, then someone had to prepare that head. Someone had to explain in advance to everyone walking around you that this is a clear sign of success. Otherwise, the proof simply doesn't work. It's useless to show a password to people who don't even know it. So who planted that password in millions of heads at the same time? The answer is in how the economy of wanting actually works in practice. And the first thing to understand is why it's more profitable to work with the wanting itself rather than with the thing being sold. A watch is just metal, labor, and assembly time. You can only physically make a fixed number of them in the world, but wanting them is different. Everyone can do that all at once, for free, for years on end without ever getting tired. Wanting never runs out as a resource, and it costs nothing to produce. And here's the first big turn. If you can sell the thing to 1%, but make all 100% want it, then the valuable part of your work isn't the actual thing itself. The valuable part is the wanting, because it's their gaze on the wrist, their "I wish that were me," that makes the 1%'s ownership mean anything at all to anyone. Take away the envious majority, and the minority is just holding a watch, expensive, accurate, and completely empty. That's why you, even without buying anything, are not outside this game in any way. You are exactly what this advertising makes. Your wanting is a component of someone else's visible status. Now look at how that wanting gets installed. And here's the strangest piece of evidence. A company that makes watches. And there are almost no watches in it. There's Everest in the film. There's the bottom of the deepest trench. Lying down in the ocean. Swimming across the English Channel. A flight beyond the atmosphere. People in the comments under that film honestly write back, wait, did I just watch a giant ad? And they simply can't look away. A normal advertisement says, buy. But this whole film says dream. And that difference is everything here. Buying is reserved for the 1%, but dreaming is open to everyone. A dream is completely free. A dream lives inside a person for years, and it asks nothing of them yet. But the film does something more important. For one full century now, this company has placed its watches not on the wrists of studio models, but on the wrists of records, next to the person on top of the world, next to the very first person to reach the bottom of the ocean. And when the brain sees two things lying side by side enough times, it stops keeping them separate. It stitches the two together. A quiet swap quietly takes place. First, it's Rolex makes good watches. Then, after 100 such pairings, it becomes Rolex is the summit. And then comes the very thing this was all secretly built for. A person stops asking the question of whether the watch earned its place up there at the summit. The watch has simply become what the very word summit means. It has become the measuring stick. That's the real trick at work here. Not to convince you the brand is best, but to become the ruler itself that you use to measure the word best. When someone says today, it's the Rolex of whatever else, nobody actually bothers to check whether Rolex itself is any good. It's already the unit of measurement, and you don't prove a unit of measure, you just use it without thinking. That's the answer to your second question. The standard that was already in your head before you ever consciously thought of it. It was put there on purpose, not with any kind of argument, but with patient repetition. The thing placed next to greatness, again and again and again, decade after decade after decade. But the machine would be incomplete without one final piece. The wanting itself is installed, but now it has to be kept burning. And that is done through unavailability. Here, logic seems like it should break. Normally, things go like this. You can't get something, so you switch off. You forget about it. You move on. Unavailability puts the wanting out. That's how it should work in theory. And here's an experiment that proves that should and does are different things. The agency Ogilvy mailed out envelopes asking people to donate to relief efforts after a major hurricane disaster. There were different versions of the envelope, 100,000 of each version. One version offered a rational benefit. Fill out a form, and your donation gets a generous tax rebate. The other versions offered nothing, or a small note explaining that a volunteer had delivered it by hand. Any economist alive would have bet on the rational envelope winning. You're literally being paid extra to do the very thing you were already going to do anyway. But it did the worst of all of them, more than 30% below the plain control version of the envelope. And the pointless, nicer envelopes actually did much better than that. And it was the expensive paper that pulled in the biggest donations. People were handed a logical reason, and they pushed it firmly away. They were handed a feeling instead, and they responded to that feeling. The conclusion is simple and uncomfortable to accept. Wanting doesn't do the math on benefit. It reads the signal instead. That's why the empty display case inside a luxury store and the waiting list that stretches for many years into the future isn't a supply failure at all. It's a deliberate signal. A closed door tells your wanting exactly what it needs to hear. The real thing is hidden behind here, and the tighter that door is shut, the more you want to get inside. There's even a name for this effect. By now it should be clear we're not analyzing one single company. The Hermes bag people wait years for. The sneakers released in tiny runs so people fight each other over them. It's all the very same machine. Install the wanting through a dream. Turn the thing into a measuring stick. Keep the heat on with unavailability. Rolex is just convenient to put under the microscope because on Rolex you can't see the seams. But the mechanism itself belongs to the whole industry. And if it belongs to the whole industry, then it was already working on you before you ever heard the word Rolex. The wanting itself is installed. The standard is firmly planted. The heat is fully on. That leaves one final question, the one you might be afraid to ask. What if it all actually worked? What if you reached and you bought it? Let's say the story ends well for you. You earned it, you saved up, you got through the long waiting list. You finally opened the box yourself. The watch is now on your wrist. What really happens next? Not in the ad, but in real life. Next, something kicks in that psychologists call adaptation, specifically the hedonic kind. The first few days are a high. You catch people looking at you. You feel the thing you came for. And then, week after passing week, the feeling slowly starts to fade. Not because something is wrong with you. That's exactly how everyone is built. Any new level very quickly becomes just the background, the new normal. And you catch yourself already looking at the next model. You stepped off the starting line, and you're standing on it once again, just a more expensive version of it. This same thing holds up when you look at money in general. The major study by Kahneman and Deaton showed that as income gradually rises, the way a person rates their life from the outside view really does keep going up steadily. But how you actually feel from day to day stops rising much earlier than that. It flattens out completely. The outside score keeps climbing, but the inside state just stays put. And then comes the hardest part of this whole strange mechanism, a paradox the economist Easterlin noticed. Status, by its very nature, isn't measured inside of you at all. It's measured between you and the other people around you. It's always purely relative. And so when you rise up the ladder, the people you measure yourself against rise right along with you. The bar doesn't stay where it used to be. It moves up steadily with you. It's a race built so the finish line slides forward by exactly as much as you advance toward it. And here, everything comes together in one single sharp point. More than 100 years ago, the economist Veblen described things that people buy because of high price and not in spite of the high price, where the price itself is the message. That takes us right back to the box from chapter 1. There's no mechanism inside, there's a message inside, and you paid for the message. But the message, as we can see now, gets sent outward into the world, straight into other people's eyes. And the question you started this for, that one is on the inside. Am I good enough? Is a question that a person asks themselves alone, and you can't get that answer from anywhere on the outside, no matter how many looks you collect. The exchange simply doesn't balance, not because the thing is bad, the thing is actually excellent, but because an inside question simply can't be closed by an outside purchase at all. The currency itself is wrong. And if that turns out to be true, then it's not only the person who couldn't buy who loses out, the person who could actually buy ends up losing too. Let's pull the whole chain together. Through patient repetition, a standard was planted inside of you, a thing that means real success. Then it was carefully arranged so that you'd want it even more, precisely because you can't reach it. And you wanted it sincerely, as your own personal desire. But here's what actually happened. Quietly, along the way somewhere, they didn't swap the actual thing. They swapped the question itself. The question used to be, am I good enough for myself? That one is hard to answer honestly, but at least an answer is possible. It got quietly replaced with another one. Did I reach the bar someone else set? And that second question simply has no answer at all. Not by accident, but entirely by design. The bar is always set a little higher. That's exactly how it was built to work. So the exchange itself doesn't balance for anyone at all. Not for the 1% who bought it, because the thing has no function for answering an inside question. Because they spend their whole lives wanting something they were given that was never supposed to settle them in the very first place. The watch itself has nothing to do with it. Rolex has nothing to do with it either. It just happened to be available as the most honest example out there. This isn't really about watches, and it isn't about rich people at all. It's really about something else. Next time you want something that you can't afford, and you feel that familiar quiet sting, it's worth stopping for a second and asking yourself the question, not how do I get it for myself, something else, whose question are you really trying to close right now? And in whose language exactly were you handed the answer?